When you grow up around emotional neglect or cruelty, your nervous system learns to shut down as a way to survive. You don't cry, you don't speak up, you don't run, you just disappear inside yourself because that's what kept you safe. And then later in life, when someone mistreats you, especially someone you love, that shutdown kicks in again like a reflex. You go numb. You tell yourself, oh, it's not so bad. You wait for it to pass. But it doesn't pass because now the shutdown itself is what's hurting you. My letter today is from a woman I'll call Kiana, and she writes, "Hi, Anna. I have CPTSD. I grew up in Jamaica, where I can honestly say that my mother did the best she could as a single parent to raise me and my sister. I wouldn't say I grew up in a two-parent household because my father was just a presence in the house with hardly any interactions with me or my sister." All right, I've got my fairy pencil. I'm going to go through and circle things that I want to come back to on a second reading. But first, let's go through and see what's happening in Kiana's life here. Relationships have been difficult for me. I'm 42 years old, and I don't think I've ever been in a genuine and true love relationship. I'm a nurse by profession, so I'm fortunate enough to be able to provide for myself and my one daughter. However, I have past and present trauma from relationships that significantly affects me. I find that I always attach to men who are either unavailable, have commitment issues, or lack emotional intelligence. As you said, it's not who I attract, but who I give attention to, Kiana says, and that is something that I say. 9 years ago, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease that I believe greatly developed because of my CPTSD. I'm managing it well, but it has flare-ups from time to time due to working in a stressful environment, trauma, and life stressors. That's true. I've been in a 4-year relationship with a man who has consistently given me his worst self. That's an interesting way to put it. We've had numerous arguments, conflicts, and misunderstandings, and recently he told me that he hasn't been giving me his best self for the entire duration of our relationship. When I tried to challenge him to improve our relationship, he turned the tables and made it seem like I was the problem. Things have been difficult since that discussion. It's made me question my own worth and brought about feelings of self-doubt and resentment toward him and myself for allowing him to treat me this way. I feel so broken. However, he lacks the ability to communicate effectively and only engages in surface-level conversations. He keeps telling me he loves me, but his actions often show otherwise. There have been instances of disrespect on his part and situations where he hasn't established boundaries with his child's mother, which has led to conflicts between him and me. Deep down, I don't believe he's the right person for me, but it's hard for me to let go. I feel unsettled and convicted in my spirit, but I still struggle to come to terms with ending our relationship. My main reason for writing this letter is that whenever we have disagreements, I shut down, and this can go on for months. The last time we stopped talking, for 8 months, we reconnected again after his brother made a 3-way call with both of us. And during that phone call, he expressed how much he missed me. I asked him why he hadn't reached out sooner, and he said I had told him I needed time. Anna, this isn't the first, second, or third time we've taken a break. And I'm always the one who reaches out to have discussions or rekindle our relationship. I've always noticed that shutting down when there's conflict is an emotional response that also occurred in my previous relationship, which involved infidelity and eventually became toxic. I'm afraid this habit might resurface even after I've healed and found my true love. I genuinely don't want this to be a reason to push the right person away, as I've ruined my best relationship due to intense emotions and unresolved trauma. How can I express my feelings without feeling overwhelmed and shutting down? Is this a trauma response on my part, or is it that the recipient lacks understanding or does not know how to acknowledge and support me during such a challenging time, which causes me to shut down? I'm deeply concerned about this issue and would greatly appreciate your feedback. All right. Thank you very much, Kiana. I sure feel for you. So let's go over what you told me here. I see that you have a lot of adaptation to be a strong person. And strength is good. Like if you're going to have a trauma mode, a way that, like all the kids in a family where there's trauma, they play different roles. And if you're the strong one, there's a lot of downsides to that, but at least you get to be a nurse. At least you have financial stability. So, there are upsides. But the thing is, when you're the strong one for the family, always kind of seeing, understanding on behalf of your mother why it's understandable that she treated you badly and didn't protect you from other relatives. You're giving her a pass on that. That's you trying to be strong. But as I think you realize, you're bypassing what happened to you and the betrayal of how you couldn't tell anybody until much later in your life. And if you could just imagine a little child who's getting abused by relatives, not telling, like, what does it take? What is it that would compel a child to think, I can't tell the people who are supposed to take care of me? And I feel so sad for you about that. And I understand. I had it happen to me too. And I remember being a child and thinking, I can't tell them. I mean, it was unthinkable. I knew they couldn't handle it. And later when I was adult and I told them, they didn't handle it. I was right. I sussed it out when I was a kid. And that's the really sad thing, because it's one thing that we get abused, but it's another thing that we had to deal with it alone, right? So you finally got the courage 2 years ago. You're 42, so you were 40. You finally told your sister about what happened, and then you found out it had happened to her too, by the same people. I'm so sorry that you didn't have each other through all of this, but now you do. Now you do. And not surprisingly, relationships have been difficult for you. Yeah, I totally get it. Like what happened to you and the way it's so unresolved and you didn't have people there for you. Like those of us who were traumatized as kids, we still have a need for love and connection with people. We still want companionship and families and romance. And we want and need all of those things. But there's these obstacles inside that make us choose strangely, in a way that we're not going to get what we're looking for and we can't see it coming. We weren't really raised to have that perception, or they actively shut our perception down. Honestly, in a family where there's like all that kind of abuse going on with relatives and parents not seeing it, it just seems like the story is so often that the kids couldn't tell the parents. When the parents find out, they don't take it very well or they don't get it. And we at least get the validation of knowing we didn't do anything wrong. They should have been there. They should have been vigilant. They should have been keeping an eye on their children. And I know it's possible for children to hide such things, but I think I speak for both you and me and everybody here who had this happen to them, that it would have been so incredibly powerful and reassuring if an adult we trusted would have come to us and said, you seem like something is wrong. Do you feel like you can tell me what it is? And became a safe person that we could have told. And then they could have advocated for us. And they could have made sure it never happened again. I mean, that was supposed to be our parents, right? So it's totally understandable that you would have problems in relationships. My experience is to change that. We're not stuck like that. It definitely becomes a pattern that we shut down. When you describe shutting down, that makes total sense to me. How else were you supposed to deal with what was going on in your home? How else were you supposed to deal with it? What, have a parade, start yelling on the rooftop? No, we shut down. And we were just kids. So, maybe that's not only seemed the most practical thing to do, but also a way to keep the spotlight off of us, given that as children, we were totally unclear whether we should be ashamed of ourselves or not. So hide was our reaction. So you're coming out of hiding, Kiana, and that is beautiful. That is a great day in the history of you, that you wrote to me, that you're working on this and you're starting to come out of hiding and you're starting to be willing. It's not that you're willing. You were never unwilling. It's just that growth has happened enough inside of you that you're being compelled forward to go, all right, I want to get this right. So you had said you always attach to men who are either unavailable, have commitment issues, or lack emotional intelligence. And not to blame you for, I don't know, I think in a way when we have a pattern of people who can't love us, there's something about the way that they half-ass their love for us that kind of works for us. There's some way that it doesn't demand of us something that we're not ready to give or we're not ready to be accountable for. And so I don't know, sometimes, maybe I should just speak for myself. But when I ask myself, what was I doing with people like that ever? Why would I put so much emotional energy into it instead of just being logical and being, look, they're not available. They just gave me a sign like very early on. Why didn't I go? Well, one, because especially when my wounds were fresh from, the hurts, my attachment instinct was very strong and very fast. So I was in the relationship quickly. Then my abandonment wound was very strong and would keep me from leaving because the threat of what it would feel like to end a relationship, even when I knew wasn't the right one for me, it just felt like I'm going to get so depressed I won't be able to finish the semester or I won't be able to keep a job. It was genuinely threatening to my well-being. And I would just think, just keep everything going as best I can so that I can be okay. There's kind of a logical explanation for it. But then there comes a day when we can finally break out of it. And sometimes it's because we were strong and visionary and we did the right thing. And a lot of times it's just because everything fell apart and we had no choice. But God bless the no choice moments there. I'm grateful that something came along to push me along and get me out of that stuck place. Shutting down once kept you safe. We can bless that too. It kept you safe. It did. And now you're learning to come back out of it and express yourself and stay present in situations. One of the tough things about staying present is sometimes you see things in other people that are not acceptable to you. And if you were to see that and you were actually to be like present with yourself and not abandoning yourself, you'd go, all right, I can't put up with this. I have to go. So I think that might be all there is to it, is like we couldn't just like leave people like that before. But now, at 42, you have some good maturity, you have a living, you have a daughter, and you're sick and tired of the results that come. It doesn't just automatically get better. When we've lived long enough to see that we have a pattern. And I mean, for most of us, our pattern showed up long before, early it showed up. So now we start to see that we have choices, and we'd rather be alone than keep dealing with something that felt so unacceptable. I care very much that 9 years ago you were diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, and you feel pretty sure, and it's logical, that it was exacerbated and flares up from time to time because of stress. So you and me, it's not good for us to live in stress. I have a couple autoimmune disorders myself, and if you have two, you might get three, and I don't want the third one to be something grave and serious. The first two I can handle. I have Graves' disease. I got my thyroid nuked. I take replacement drugs. I can handle that. I have vitiligo. I have no pigment, or I have blotchy pigment, not very much in my face. And I can live with that too. But autoimmune disorders range into things that are life-threatening, and I don't want that. So I have to always remind myself stress is not good. And that's why I'm always teaching these techniques, because the normal stresses of relationships times our trauma wounds start to make very dramatic relationships, and dramatic relationships equal stress. And by the way, if you're thinking, did my childhood trauma, is it now playing out in the form of symptoms of trauma today? Are there signs of that? I have a quiz that you can download for free that lists a whole series of signs that trauma from the past is impacting the way that you have relationships today. You might know that instinctively, but it can be really helpful to see some of the specific signs that are common for people who are traumatized. If you want that, I'll have it down in the first link in the description section right under this video. And there's a button you can click more. You can see a lot more links, but the very top one, I'll make it be this trauma affecting your relationships quiz. I'll make that for you. It's not a diagnosis tool. It's a list of symptoms you can see if you identify with. So then you told me about your 4-year relationship with this guy. So 4 years, that's a big part of your life, from 38 to 42. And you describe it as he's consistently given you his worst self. And it's very interesting that you say that, because I believe that what a real partnership relationship is, or a marriage, is where you give your best self and you don't give it away to other people at work. Your charming, delightful, fun companionship. You give the best of you to your partner. That's what I consider to be what the obligations of a marriage are, on top of all the fidelity and all that good stuff. But he wasn't giving you his best self. He's giving you his worst self. And you have a lot of conflicts. Okay, many of us do. That's not necessarily the end of things. But recently he said he hasn't been giving you his best self for the entire duration of the relationship. And I can't help but feel like either he or you are giving me a euphemism for something worse that's going on. Like, is he unfaithful or does he lie about something? I wasn't sure if you meant something more by that, but let me just take you at face value. He says he just hasn't bothered to give you his best self. When you've tried to challenge him to improve the relationship, he turned the tables and said you were a problem. And I think when a relationship has a future, saying, I'd like us to work on changing this relationship is a positive thing. Now, when you say there's something about you that you're doing that's not good enough for me, I could see how another person might say, well, in that case, if I can't just be me as I am right now, I'm not really into this. That's a fair response from somebody, but it's not clear that he's saying that. So you're staying together, and now you're going through this, I'm questioning my own self-worth, full of self-doubt and resentment at myself for allowing him to treat me this way, and feel so broken. It sounds like your spirit is just like crying to you, going, please get me out of this relationship. This is degrading me. I feel bad about myself. Why are you allowing this to happen? Right? And so I think you know what to do. And as is often the case when somebody's in a sort of trauma-driven relationship, they will often say, oh, there's these really bad things, and they sound really bad. They sound like, well, that relationship can't continue. And then they'll say, but what should I do? Like, oh, there's the confusion. There's the confusion. That's what self-doubt looks like. It's a totally unworkable relationship. The way they treat me is unacceptable. So what can I do? And there's nothing you can do. If somebody else isn't going to work on it for you, there's nothing you can do. And I don't think this sounds like something you would ever be happy accepting. All relationships have times when we just wish the person would be different, and we have to decide whether we're leaving or we're going to accept them. But if you're staying and you're just hurt all the time and you resent them all the time, maybe it's just time. Maybe it's just time. You said deep down, I don't believe he's the right person for me. And there it is. But you said, it's hard for me to let go. Oh, do I know how that is? Yes. So I feel unsettled and convicted in my spirit, but I still struggle to come to terms with ending our relationship. So that sounds to me like an abandonment wound, that I'm not happy. I don't like him. I'm angry at him and myself, but I struggle to come to terms with ending the relationship. And I understand you so well, Kiana. I know it's hard. And there's a way to do it. You can leave. You can end it. And it doesn't have to be ugly. You don't have to wait till there's this horrible fight or somebody does something really over the line. You can say it very gently. And if you're worried at all that he's going to be harsh or abusive with you, you can set yourself up so that everything's ready for you to have a total closed door boundary against him. I don't know if that's what you need. But like in the case of an abusive relationship, that might often involve like a moving out. I don't even know if you live together. But breaking up with somebody who is threatening to you or anything like that is handled one way. I'm going to assume that's not what this is. It's just an unhappy relationship. And so you can say, I've loved you so much. All these 4 years, we've had all these times together, so many of them good. But the more I've thought about it, the more I realize this relationship just isn't working for me. And I'm very sorry, that I can't continue, but I do need to end this. And you don't have to take him, drag him out over the carpet, tell him how terrible it is. It sounds like in the conflicts that you've had, you've discussed this before, but just in the most caring, simple, unemotional, non-controlling way possible to just say, I'm ending it. And if you're very clear that you're doing it, you can do it gently. It doesn't have to be a big fight. Now, I don't know him. He might kick up a fuss, and he might. In that case, you might need a boundary there, and that's why you may want to do it in a public place. I hope you don't live together. You have your daughter, right? So, yeah, you want to keep things very peaceful for her. But you can do this in a public place, and you can leave with just nothing but good wishes. Now, a lot of people try to stay friends after a breakup. If you have attachment wounds that I see going on here where it's so hard for you to leave, I just would not. Maybe you'll see him again someday, but don't leave the door open. Just don't say, hey, we can be friends, or why don't we talk in a week? You don't have to do that. You can just say you're ending it. Give him half an hour to talk it out with you, and then let it go. And here's what's going to happen is there's a period of withdrawal, even in an unhappy relationship. When you have kind of a attachment wound that's driving you to stay together, there's going to be a period. Of course, there's sadness, but there's this extra thing that feels like withdrawal from a drug, where you might feel tired, achy, big waves of depression will come after you. So before you have this conversation is the best time to line up sweet things in your life, supportive friendships, maybe a little trip, an undertaking to make your life healthier. Maybe you're going to start taking walks every day, or you're going to start eating healthy meals 3 nights a week and involve your daughter in this, to start doing really, really positive things to, even though you're feeling sad, even though you're feeling tired and heartbroken about the ending, even though you're old, abandonment wounds from childhood are kicking up again and telling you otherwise, you can say to yourself, I'm doing the right thing. I'm making room in my life for happiness and true love to find me one day, which can't happen when you already have somebody occupying that space and you so sad and not the shiny, radiant you who is yourself, being totally yourself, not walking on eggshells. That's who someone's going to fall in love with. There is no true love for people who are shut down because they're not really here, and how can people see you? So for you to live a life where you really do get to be yourself, and in the little moments, the way you chit-chat in line at the grocery store, the way you act when you're frustrated in traffic, all of those things, it's still you, it's still real. You're not controlling yourself. Then one day when you go on a date, you can be yourself too. And you won't even date people who are not drawn to the person you really are. I just hear this whole story of your childhood and how you had to, even to this day, you're like, but I understand my mom had to abuse me because she was doing the best she could. On the one hand, I know what you're saying, but on the other hand, I just want to tell you that is not the best she could do. Her trauma may have been such that she couldn't control herself. But it wasn't okay. It wasn't okay. I do understand the dual nature of it, but don't forget to tell yourself that was not okay. Nobody was there for you. For a child to be sexually abused is a terrible, terrible, terrible thing. And somebody should have been there to protect you. And I'm so sorry that happened to you and that you were left to deal with it as a child all by yourself, and all the trips that you would have put on yourself about that. None of it true. You're just nothing but good. You're just nothing but good. And you're moving past a relationship that doesn't feel right for you. And you're clearing up your life, ready for a wonderful thing to happen. So I gave you that quiz about finding out if trauma has affected you. Now, I want to give you a really cool download that's about how to prepare for a great relationship. These are some areas of your life that you can attend to when you're thinking of being ready. And you can save it, like download it now when you remember and you have the link, and then save it. And when you're out of your relationship, go ahead and start studying it and see if you find something that you feel really inspired to start developing in yourself. The download is How to Get Ready for a Great Relationship. If you like this topic, I've got a video that builds on it right over here, and I will see you very soon. I felt like something was chasing me, and I gave a name to it. I call it a pack of wolves. I mean, there aren't actually wolves. It was emotion, and that's what was coming to get me. And it was a feeling, usually sadness.